For more on how farmers have been impacted by the changing climate, we can speak to Jean-Mathieu Thévenot, a farmer in southwestern France's Basque region near the Spanish border. He's also a member of the farmers' union Confédération Paysanne. Good morning, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Good morning.
I believe you grow organic seedlings. Can you tell us about what your summer has been like? How are your crops doing?
Well, so fortunately for us, as we are a little bit in the beginning of the chain, we produce seedlings mostly in spring. So we were slightly impacted by the beginning of the heat wave, but it was mostly our clients, the other veggie producers who are taking plants from our plant nursery, who were strongly impacted. And because we are kind of a hub for all these professionals to gather, we have a lot of information from on the ground, and it's really harsh at the moment because a lot of farmers doesn't have enough water to water the plants. And when we talk about veggies, they need water. So it's in some cases even the very survival of the farm which is at stake, because some people are already in very complex financial situation, and such a summer could actually kill the company or the farm.
Can you tell us a bit more about some of the stories you've been hearing? What crops, for example, are most impacted in particular?
So in my region, everything is impacted. We have a lot here of animal raising, mostly cows and sheep. And basically, we normally produce hay in quite good quantities. Normally, farmers here would be able to harvest at least twice hay in the spring and beginning of summer, sometimes even three times. And this year, they could only harvest once, meaning that they will miss a lot of hay for this winter, and they are already being quite well in a complex also psychological situation, because not knowing how they will be able to feed the animals in the winter if they are already starting to use the stocks now. We also have issues, as I said, with fruit and vegetables producers, because with such a heat wave, it's not only about water, but the very the radiation from the sun is so strong that some veggies and fruits were burnt on the plant, meaning that the harvest will be very low. And we already know that, for example, for some veggies, we need a lot of water, like leek or cabbage. The production this year will be lower than usual, and this will have a huge impact on food security, food sovereignty, and food prices.
And this isn't the first difficult summer that France has had. Just how unprecedented is it for farmers?
Well, I think there's a shift this year. From what I'm hearing and what I am experiencing on the field, we really feel that this year, 2026, is a changing year, because until now, we had already some small changes in climate in the past few years. But here we have a gap between what happened in the past 2-3 years and this summer. We have a huge gap in terms of temperature and in terms of precipitation. We had almost no water for months in a lot of places in France. And we are not used to that. I mean, some other countries in the south of Europe might be used to this kind of weather, and they do have crops that can deal with this kind of weather, which is not the case here. For example, in my region, we receive approximately 1,500 millimeters of water per year, which is huge. So crops, trees, forests, the nature is not adapted to this new extremely high temperatures and low rainfall. And so it's also a question of how can we be able to adapt very fast, because we have very little time. And farming, we work with life, we work with plants, we work with animals, and we cannot change systems in a few minutes. Like it needs time. So indeed, the question now is, how will we be able to adapt and change the system? And here we really think from Confédération Paysanne that public support is needed, and public policies need to help farmers with this transition.
And speaking of adapting, we just saw in that report farmers that are growing different types of crops that are more adapted, sorghum, chickpeas. Is that something that you see as a potential solution?
Well, definitely that will. I think, unfortunately, we don't really have a choice. It looks like political leaders at global level decided that they don't want to act on climate change, and they just accepted the fact that humanity is going towards an extremely chaotic and dangerous period. So if these political leaders cannot take responsibilities and act on this very huge threat for the very survival of humanity, indeed, we will have to adapt as much as we can. But as I said, there will have some impact. It's not possible to change a full agricultural system of a country in a few years. Even if we change crops, even if we adapt, and we will, there is a real question of is it going to work first? And is it going to get worse? Because according to scientists, this is just the beginning of climate change in France. And the other and last issue is also the question of farmers. Farmers are heavily impacted by this crisis, psychologically, technically, economically. And this means that some farms might disappear actually in the coming years because, well, financially they will not support the crisis. And we are losing so many farms every year in France. I think that's the most frightening part of it. If we lose more farms now, I think food sovereignty of France might be at risk.
Can you talk a bit more about what you're hearing from farmers? I mean, are they giving up? Kind of how what are they telling you about how they're feeling right now?
Yes, well, we have some farmers that are really in desperation because they look at their crops. The crops are dying, the animals are dying, and they cannot do anything because, for example, the rivers have so low level that we cannot pump in the river anymore. Or, for example, here we have a lot of farmers that are moving the animals in the mountain. It's a pastoralist system that has been happening for thousands of years in this region. And this year, a lot of places in the mountains have no water. So actually, they might have to come down from the mountain earlier than usual. So this will also have a quite strong impact on, how to say, traditions, because here for farmers also going to the mountain was something traditional. So we see here that also this crisis is not only impacting like economically and physically the farms, but it's also impacting the culture. It's also impacting the mental health of these farmers. When you know, as farmers, we love what we do. Usually we love our plants, we love our animals. These are living beings. And so when we see these plants and animals dying in the sun, it's also very harsh, not only in terms of economics, but also in terms of psychology. And I hear some farmers saying, okay, this is my last year. I don't want to cope with this anymore, so I will stop. Other farmers don't want to stop, but they don't have the choice because basically they say, okay, I don't have enough money to invest in a water system, for example. So I cannot change my system at the moment, and therefore I will not survive this crisis.
And what do farmers need? What concrete steps could be taken by the government?
Well, I think there is two parts in here. The first part is the emergency. At the moment, some farms are in a terrible situation and they need support. So this needs emergency support with basically special aids from CAP or other mechanism that we have to help farmers just survive this year, basically, and the few months that are coming. But after that, in Confédération Paysanne, we think that this is not just one crisis. Climate change is something that is now quite clear. And so we think that we need also structural responses to this, meaning that we also want the government and public policies to include this new reality and work in a way that farmers can be helped to change. And we think that the only way forward is peasant agroecology. Peasant agroecology is a system that is based on the autonomy of farmers and on a very more local system where we try to include all the environmental parameters, so water, rainfall, temperature, etc., working in a more democratic way to find food systems that are adapted both culturally, environmentally, and economically. But this is not really working in a globalized system where we are importing very cheap food from all over the world with lower standards in terms of social work and environment. So we also think that here we have a real political problems in terms of markets. And in Confédération Paysanne, it's been years that we are saying that we need to protect farmers in Europe because they are doing amazing food and they are hit very strongly by international competition.
We will be following the situation for European farmers, especially as this harvest season continues. Thank you again so much for joining us this morning. That was Jean-Mathieu Thévenot, a farmer in southwestern France and a member of the union Confédération Paysanne.